Are you ready to get down with the sickness? We've got Etali Primal Conqueror. Let's go. This new Etali puts the old one to shame. When at ETBs, we're going to exile cards from the top of each player's library until we hit a non-land card. Then we had to cast those spells for free. Also, it transforms into Etali Primal Sickness. With Trample Indestructible, it's an 11/11, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. This is Blightsteel Colossus in the form of a dinosaur. Let's get into this deck tech. What are our goals? Most folks are probably going to think we're going to focus on the exiling of cards and getting some additional advantage from that. We're going to do a little bit of that, but my main focus is to win through poison counters. Infect, everybody's favorite way to win a game of Commander. So we're going to put some of the biggest, baddest red-green infect threats in this deck and win in the least fun way possible. Let's get into it. The sickness. First up, there's Bloated Contaminator. It's a 3-mana 4/4 with Toxic 1, and when it deals combat damage, it's going to proliferate to really increase those number of poison counters. Canker Bloom is going to give us a little bit of removal in the deck. You can take out artifacts and enchantments. Worst comes to worst, we can use it for the proliferate to really increase the poison count. Contaminant Grafter does a little bit of everything. It's got Toxic 1, and whenever our creatures deal damage, they proliferate. And if your opponents have 3 or more poison counters, we need to draw cards and cheat lands into play. Evolution Sage has the best landfall ability. When a land ETBs, we get to proliferate. Fallen Ferromancer is a pinger with infect. That way we can get that poison train started early and proliferate them out. Glissa's Retriever is an absolute threat. It's a 6/6 with haste and toxic 3, and it can't be chump blocked. And it does have corrupted, so when it dies we can exile it, and when we do, we return up to X target cards from our graveyard to our hand, where X is the number of opponents who have 3 or more poison counters. Of course we're running Glistener Elf. It's the classic infect creature. It has to go in this deck. Glistening Sphere is an awesome mana rock for the deck. When it ETBs, we get to proliferate. It can tap for any mana, and also if it has corrupted, we can tap for 3 mana. So super explosive, super good in our poison build. Goliath Hatchery is going to give us 2 3/3 Beastie Boys with Toxic 1. And also it has corrupted. It's going to let us draw a ton of cards based on a creature's power. Grafted Exoskeleton is going to make any of our creatures have infect, and it's really going to deal out the poison counters when equipped to a creature with toxic. Infectious Bite is a removal spell, and it also gives each opponent a poison counter. Get that infection going. Inkmoth Nexus is the little land that could. It can transform to a 1/1 flyer with infect. Get that last piece of poison in to win the game. Karn's Bastion is another synergistic land for our build. It's just going to proliferate by paying 4 mana and tapping it. We've got Luca, Bound the Ruin. We got him in the deck just to make the Toxic Beast, but he can make mana and deal damage, but we're here for the Beast with Toxic. Noxious Assault is a type of overrun spell. It's going to pump our creatures by +2/+2. The best thing is it puts our opponents in a tricky situation, because if they block, they still get the poison counters anyway. Phyrexian Swarmlord goes absolutely insane. It's got infect and it's a 4/4, but at the beginning of our upkeep, we're going to put a 1/1 green infect creature onto the battlefield for each poison counter our opponents have. It's going to be a lot of insects. We've also got some weird pinpoint removal in the deck because it's flavorful. We've got Pistis Strike. It's going to destroy a target creature with flying, then his controller gets a poison counter. Plague Mirror's a little mana dork, but it does have infect, so watch out. The mirror's coming. Pollen Bright Druid's a little lackluster. However, we can have it in our back pocket because when it comes into play, we can proliferate. Smell Fear is a fight spell, so that means it's removal for our deck, but it also proliferates to up that poison count. Move over Staff of Domination, we have Staff of Completion. It can let us destroy our own permanents, add mana, big thing, proliferate, even lets us draw cards, and it can untap itself. It does it all, and I love it. Of course, we're going to run the best infect card ever printed. That's Triumph of the Hordes. It's going to give all of our creatures +1/+1 and give them infect. Combine that with the Toxic, we're going to one-shot the whole table at once without even using our Etali. Tyrannex Rex is an ultimate beatdown threat. Not as good as Etali, but it's decent. It can't be countered. It's got Trample, Word 4, and Haste, and Toxic 4. We've got Venerated Rot Priest in here because it's going to offer us some protection. Our opponents target our stuff with removal, they're going to get a poison counter. Venomous Brutalizer is a 4/4 with Toxic 3, and you can also pay a little extra mana to get a proliferation. Viridian Corruptor is going to come into play and destroy a target artifact on ETB, and it's an infecting 2/2 elf that is hideous. I love this guy. Volt Charge is an overcosted lightning bolt, but for 3 mana it also proliferates. Wormquake is a sorcery that's going to make us a ton of huge Phyrexian worms with Toxic 1. We can even flash it back to make our army complete. Now that we got the sickness out of the way, let's talk a little bit about advantage and some exile. First up, there's Apex Devastator. It's a 10/10 with Cascade, 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 Cascade. That's a ton of cards from exile. We are a creature-heavy deck, so Beast Whisperer is going to be a card draw all-star. Whenever we cast a creature spell, we get to draw a card. Elemental Bond's even better than Beast Whisperer. Whenever a creature comes into play with power 3 or greater under our control, we get to draw a card. That includes our token makers. Of course, we have the original Etali, Etali Primal Storm. It's going to let us get more cards from exile from our opponents and from our deck. Valdorn Dreadwolf Herald is another advantage engine. We can discard cards to exile cards and play them. And also when we cast a spell from exile, we get the added bonus of a wolf. Garruk's Pack Leader is just a beastie boy that's going to let us draw cards whenever we play a creature with power 3 or greater. Garruk's Uprising is going to give us a card every time one of our big beaters come into play, and it also gives our whole board trample. Guardian Project's yet again another one of those enchantments where we play a creature, we get a card. We've got a lot of those. Jessica's Will is going to net us 3 cards we can play from exile and give us a ton of mana if we control our commander. It's a win-win. Lelia the Blade Reforged is going to give us some exile card advantage, and whenever a card gets put in the exile, it's going to grow. It's going to be a huge beatdown threat. Now, Feshni is an absolute all-star in this deck. Whenever we cast a spell from exile, we get to copy it. That is insane value, and we're going to be getting a ton of it with this build. Since our deck is combat-focused, Professional Facebreaker is going to make us a ton of treasures. We can turn those treasures into exile card draw. Return of the Wild Speaker is going to give us an overrun effect with the added benefit we can use it as a card draw spell. Shamanic Revelation is going to draw us a card for each creature we control, and our big beaters are going to help gain us life with this spell as well. What can I say about the Great Henge? It's going to help ramp our creatures, it's going to help us draw cards, and it's going to pump our creatures. It literally does it all. Urabrask Heretic Praetor is going to let us exile a card at the beginning of our upkeep to give us that additional exile card advantage. Now that we've got a full grip of cards and a field full of threats, let's beat down our opponents. Endrace Forerunners is going to pump our creatures and keyword them up for that alpha strike. Keswick Wolfrun turns an unblocked infect creature into a one-shot kill. No need for Etali. Lightning Greaves will guarantee our creatures can attack the turn they come into play and keep them protected from removal spells. Overwhelming Stampede is going to make our creatures grow into huge threats out of nowhere for one-turn wins against the whole table. Rhythm of the Wild will make our creature spells uncounterable, and it's going to give the creatures riot. They can either have haste or a counter. Either way, we're getting in. If our opponent thinks they're safe, they're not. We're going to play Rogue's Passage and make our Etali Primal Sickness unblockable. Skarg, the Rage Pits, is going to pump our creatures and give them the all-important keyword of Trample, so that infect damage is getting in. Swiftfoot Boots, just like Lightning Greaves, will give our creatures haste and give it hexproof. That way it's getting in and is protected. Trailblazer's Boots will give the creature a non-basic landwalk. That means it's unblockable in Commander. Everybody runs non-basics. Tyvar Stands, a pump spell with the added benefit of giving our creature hexproof and indestructible. Whisper Silk Cloak will keep our Etali protected and make it unblockable. Synagos, God of Revels, is a true all-star in the deck. It's going to give our creature haste when it comes into play, and it can also double its power and toughness for instant kills. If you made it this far through the video, thank you. Also, the full deck list is linked in the description. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Bye-bye.